Picture this. The year is 1940. You are standing in a landscape of pure, unadulterated heat. The air shimmers, a visible furnace. It's 110 degrees in the shade, but there is no shade. There is no relief, no air conditioning humming in the background. There are no glittering towers, only a relentless sun beating down on a desperate, silent poverty. You're not just hungry, you're famine hungry. The kind of hungry where boiling a locust for dinner is a legitimate meal plan. Before you, a meager cluster of mud brick houses clings to the edge of a sluggish saltwater creek. This is not a historical reenactment. This is not a film set for a post-apocalyptic drama. This is Dubai. Its population? Maybe 20,000 souls on a generous day. Most cannot read. The wail of a grieving mother is a common sound, as infant mortality claims lives with terrifying regularity. And the entire fragile economy? It has just been vaporized. Not by war or plague, but because a man in a laboratory over 5,000 miles away learned how to trick an oyster. This is where our story begins, not with limitless wealth, but with the taste of fish bones and desert dust. Today, that same patch of cursed sand boasts a GDP soaring over $100 billion. It's a metropolis of fantasy, home to the planet's tallest building, police fleets worth more than suburban mansions, and a reputation as the hedonistic playground for the global elite. And now, you're already shouting the answer at me. I can hear it. Oil. It was the oil, stupid. Sure, oil played a part. It entered stage left, gave a supporting performance. But here is the statistic that will short-circuit your assumptions. Today, oil accounts for less than 1% of Dubai's GDP. 1%. If the money isn't coming from the ground, then where in the hell is it coming from? Strap in. We are about to dissect the greatest, most audacious geopolitical gamble of the 20th century. This is a tale of smuggled gold, of engineering projects that mocked physics, of debt piled to the sky, and a specific, relentless mindset that borders on madness. This is the dark, desperate, and dazzling story of how a dying fishing village convinced the world it was the center of the universe. Part 1. The Apocalypse of Pearls, where desperation became DNA. To understand Dubai, you must first understand its desperation. Before the glimmer, there was only grit. For centuries, the entire coast of the Trucial States, what would become the UAE, survived on a single brutal industry: pearl diving. Close your eyes and imagine it. You are a diver. Your technology is medieval. A turtle shell clip for your nose, a knife, and a rope tied to a stone to drag you down. You take a deep breath and are pulled into the silent, crushing depth. For 2 minutes, you scramble on the seabed, frantically filling a basket with oysters, while your lungs scream and your ears pop. You do this 50 times a day. You risk the bends, sharks, and drowning. But the payoff was legend. The Gulf Pearl was the ultimate luxury. It was the diamond of the Victorian era, the must-have accessory of the Roaring '20s. Cartier famously traded a prime New York property for a flawless 2-strand necklace. Dubai was a key hub in this trade. Life was harsh, perilous, but sustainable. Then, a double tap to the head. First, the Great Depression of 1929 eviscerated the appetite for luxury in the West. Then, the killer blow arrived from Japan. A man named Kokichi Mikimoto perfected the technique of culturing pearls, manufacturing nature's miracle on demand. Almost overnight, the market was flooded with perfect, round, affordable pearls. The value of natural pearls plummeted by over 90%. Imagine you live in a gold rush town and suddenly someone invents a machine that prints pure gold for $5. Your world evaporates. By the 1940s, Dubai was in the grip of a true famine. British colonial officers stationed there sent back grim dispatches describing a populace surviving on dried locusts and crushed fish bones. The population was shrinking, fleeing to other shores. This was the crucible. This starvation, this collective trauma, forged the psychological DNA of modern Dubai. The ruling Al Maktoum family learned a lesson so visceral it would become their creed. A commodity is a death sentence. Geography, however, is forever. You cannot control what comes out of the ground, but you can control the ground itself, who moves across it, and what they pay for the privilege. So, in a move of breathtaking audacity, Sheikh Saeed Al Maktoum made a pivotal decision. While other broke states were battening down the hatches, he blew the doors off. He declared Dubai a free port. Taxes on imports and exports slashed to practically zero. Think about the insanity of this. Your people are starving, your treasury is empty, and your grand strategy is to stop collecting the little revenue you have. It was an act of economic suicide, or genius. It worked. Merchants from Iran and India, chafing under heavy taxes in their own ports, looked across the Gulf and saw this desperate, hungry little village screaming, "Bring your goods here. We won't charge you." They came. Gold, spices, textiles. Dubai pivoted from producer to middleman. It was the first crucial reinvention, from a source of raw materials to a conduit for other people's wealth. The foundation was laid, not in marble, but in the shifting sands of trade and a reputation for asking no questions. Part 2. The Creek Gamble, betting a nation on a ditch. Fast forward to the late 1950s. The free port idea is simmering, but there's a physical problem choking progress. Dubai's lifeline was the creek, a saltwater inlet, but it was too shallow, too silty. Major ships couldn't enter. They had to anchor miles out, transferring cargo onto small, precarious wooden dows. It was inefficient, expensive, and dangerous. Enter the protagonist of our story, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, the father of modern Dubai. He didn't see a muddy creek, he saw a highway. He called in British engineers and asked, what would it cost to dig this out, to let the big ships sail right into the heart of our city? The quote came back, £400,000 to £600,000, a sum several times larger than Dubai's entire annual revenue. The British Bank of the Middle East looked at the proposal, a plan to dredge a creek in a town with no paved roads, and politely laughed them out of the room. So, Sheikh Rashid played a different card, royal connections. He went to his fellow ruler, the Emir of oil-rich Kuwait, and secured a personal loan. It was a staggering gamble. If the deeper creek failed to attract more trade, Dubai would be buried under a debt it could never repay. It would be a national foreclosure. But Sheikh Rashid operated on a principle that defines Dubai to this day. Dubai will never settle for anything less than first place. They dredged. Millions of cubic tons of mud were hauled away. And in 1961, the new Deepwater Channel opened. The result was not incremental, it was explosive. Ship traffic didn't increase, it multiplied. And with the ships came a new glittering commodity, gold. India had strict gold import laws to protect its foreign reserves, but its people's cultural appetite for the metal was insatiable. Dubai, with its deep creek and zero taxes, became the perfect backdoor. Gold flowed in from London and Zurich. It was officially imported to Dubai, then quietly loaded onto speedboats for the informal journey to India. Was it smuggling? Technically, yes. Dubai called it free trade. By the mid-1960s, before a single commercial drop of Dubai's own oil was exported, the city was booming. It was washing gold for a continent. And here's the critical detail. We were discovering women. When the money from the creek gamble flooded in, Sheikh Rashid didn't build a golden palace. He built a city, roads, schools, hospitals, a power grid. He is famously quoted as telling his son, "My father rode a camel, I drive a Mercedes. My son will drive a Land Rover, but his son will ride a camel." The message was clear. Wealth is transient. Only infrastructure and smart policy are permanent. The trauma of the Pearl collapse was in his bones. He needed not just an engine, but a whole new vehicle. Part 3, the port to nowhere, building on a prayer. By the 1970s, Dubai had struck oil, but the reserves were paltry compared to the oceanic wealth of next-door Abu Dhabi. Sheikh Rashid's paranoia was justified. The clock was ticking louder. So, in 1979, he made another move that made observers question his sanity. He decided to build a port, not just a port, Jebel Ali, the largest man-made harbor on Earth. And he decided to build it 22 miles outside the city, in the middle of absolute nowhere. The critics were merciless. Rashid's folly, they called it. A multi-billion-dollar boondoggle in the desert. Why would you need a second port the size of Manhattan when you already had one? But Rashid wasn't building for the Dubai of 1979. He was building for the world of 2000. He saw the map with crystal clarity. Global supertankers were getting bigger. The Cold War was simmering. The US Navy needed a deep-water, stable ally in the Gulf. He wasn't creating a dock. He was creating a strategic parking lot for global power. He hired the Dutch, the master tamers of the sea, and they moved enough sand to bury a city. When it opened, it was met with a deafening silence. The crane stood idle. The knives were being sharpened for the sheikh. Then, he played his masterstroke. In 1985, he declared Jebel Ali a free zone, GAFFZA. Inside its fences, the rules of the UAE were suspended. A foreign company could own 100% of its business. It would pay 0% corporate tax, 0% income tax, and it could repatriate 100% of its profits. The global business world short-circulated. This was unprecedented. Suddenly, it made perfect sense for a Sony or a General Motors to ship 10,000 units to Jebel Ali, store them tax-free, and distribute them across the Middle East as needed. The floodgates burst. Rashid's Folly became Jebel Ali, the engine of Dubai's non-oil economy. Today, it's the busiest port between Rotterdam and Singapore, handling millions of containers and contributing a massive chunk of that 99% non-oil GDP. Part 4. The airline born of spite and geographic genius. If Jebel Ali was foresight, Emirates Airlines was born from something much more human, pure, unadulterated spite. In the 1980s, Dubai was served by Gulf Air, a consortium owned by neighboring states. It acted like a monopoly, demanding protection and threatening to cut flights if Dubai allowed competition. In 1984, to teach Dubai a lesson, they actually reduced service. Big mistake. Threatening Dubai with isolation triggers its deepest starvation trauma. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Sheikh Rashid's son, the current ruler, summoned a British aviation maverick, Maurice Flanagan. He gave him 2 planes wet leased from Pakistan International Airlines and $10 million in seed money, a pittance in the airline industry. His orders were brutal. 1. Make it luxurious. 2. Don't come back for more money. Fly or die. This is a key point that defies the oil money myth. Apart from that initial investment and airport infrastructure, Emirates was ordered to be profitable from day one. No endless subsidies. Their strategy was genius in its simplicity. Geography. Look at a globe. Dubai is the perfect global crossroad. 1/3 of the world's population lives within a 4-hour flight. 2/3 are within an 8-hour flight. If you're flying from London to Sydney, you have to stop somewhere. Emirates said, "Stop here. Our airport is open 24/7. Our duty-free is legendary, and we will make the misery of long-haul flight disappear." They competed on luxury, not just price. They were the first to put personal TV screens in every seatback, even in economy. They installed showers in first class. They understood that on a 14-hour journey, experience is everything. Emirates became the world's largest international carrier, and in doing so, it funneled millions of people directly into Dubai's lap. Now, Sheikh Mohammed just needed a reason for them to stay. Part 5. The $1 billion billboard. Myth-making in steel and glass. Dubai had logistics, it had an airline, but it lacked a soul, a symbol. To the world, it was still just a hot, sandy place. Sheikh Mohammed needed an icon. In 1994, he commissioned British architect Tom Wright, with a brief of terrifying simplicity, "Design me a building that will become the symbol for a nation." The now iconic shape, the sail of a dhow, was sketched on a napkin. They decided to build it 900 feet offshore on an artificial island, just so it wouldn't cast a shadow on the beach. The engineering was a nightmare of saltwater corrosion and wind tunnels, secured by 230 concrete piles driven deep into the seabed. But the real genius of the Burj Al Arab wasn't in its construction, it was in its marketing. When it opened in 1999, it was a temple to over-the-top opulence. 24-karat gold leaf covered everything. The suites were vast, and it offered a level of butler service that was almost comically intense. A visiting British journalist, overwhelmed, wrote that while it was billed as 5-star, it felt like a 7-star experience. There is no official 7-star rating. The scale stops at 5. Did Dubai correct the record? Did they issue a clarification? Absolutely not. They embraced the myth. They became the myth. The world's first 7-star hotel went viral, a billion-dollar billboard that screamed to the global elite, "We have arrived, and we are more extravagant than your wildest dreams." It was a loss leader that paid for itself 1,000 times over in global PR. Celebrities flocked, and where celebrities go, investment follows. This set the stage for Dubai's most daring and dangerous chapter. Part 6. The Sandcastle Economy, and the day the music stopped. In 2002, Sheikh Mohammed pulled the trigger on the ultimate experiment. He issued the freehold decree. For the first time, foreigners could own property in Dubai. Not just lease it, own it. The speculation frenzy that followed was biblical. People queued for days to buy apartments off plan from blueprints. They flipped contracts for astronomical profits before a single brick was laid. Dubai, lacking natural coastline, decided to create its own. They dredged enough sand to create the Palm Jumeirah, a palm tree-shaped island visible from space. They started building the world, a map of the planet made of sand. And they began constructing the Burj Khalifa, aiming for the clouds. It was a debt-fueled fantasy, a sandcastle economy, built on the assumption that prices would rise forever. Then, 2008 happened. The global financial crisis hit Dubai like a sledgehammer. Credit vanished. Property prices plunged by over 50% in months. Construction on half-built towers froze, leaving skeletal ghosts across the skyline. This is the era of the infamous Dubai abandoned supercar photos. Under then existing law, a bounced check was a criminal offense leading to prison. So, when expats lost their jobs, many drove their luxury cars to the airport, abandoned them, and bought a one-way ticket out of town. By late 2009, Dubai World, the state conglomerate, was drowning in $59 billion of debt. The dream was over. The global press wrote the obituary for the gilded mirage. In its darkest hour, Dubai was saved by its richer, more conservative big brother, Abu Dhabi. They wrote a check for $10 billion, but salvation came with a symbolic price. At the grand opening of the world's tallest tower, the MC made a stunning announcement. It would not be called Burj Dubai. It would be the Burj Khalifa, named after Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the ruler of Abu Dhabi. The message was etched permanently into the skyline. Abu Dhabi has the money. Dubai has the audacity. One built on oil, the other on nerve. Part 7. The geopolitical hedge, profiting from chaos. Most nations would have been humbled into caution. Dubai absorbed the lesson and pivoted, yet again. It realized its infrastructure, the ports, the airport, the hotels, had survived the crash. The assets were real, and in a volatile world, those assets were about to become more valuable than ever. Dubai discovered its new business model, being the bunker. When the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, sowing chaos across the Middle East, where did the wealthy of Egypt, Syria, and Libya flee? Not to Europe with its visa hassles, not to America with its high taxes. They went to Dubai. It was stable, safe, neutral, and asked no questions about the origin of capital. Billions in flight capital poured into Dubai's real estate and banks, resurrecting the market from its 2008 grave. Dubai had become the Switzerland of the Middle East. This playbook repeated on a grander scale in 2022. When war erupted in Ukraine and sanctions slammed down on Russia, Dubai refused to take sides. Flights stayed open. Part 7. The geopolitical hedge, profiting from chaos. Most nations would have been humbled into caution. Dubai absorbed the lesson and pivoted, yet again. It realized its infrastructure, the ports, the airport, the hotels, had survived the crash. The assets were real, and in a volatile world, those assets were about to become more valuable than ever. Dubai discovered its new business model, being the bunker. When the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, sowing chaos across the Middle East, where did the wealthy of Egypt, Syria, and Libya flee? Not to Europe with its visa hassles, not to America with its high taxes. They went to Dubai. It was stable, safe, neutral, and asked no questions about the origin of capital. Billions in flight capital poured into Dubai's real estate and banks, resurrecting the market from its 2008 grave. Dubai had become the Switzerland of the Middle East. This playbook repeated on a grander scale in 2022. When war erupted in Ukraine and sanctions slammed down on Russia, Dubai refused to take sides. Flights stayed open. It launched a freelance visa to lure digital nomads. It established the Dubai International Financial Center, DIFC, with its own independent, English common law courts to attract global finance. The goal is no longer to just extract wealth from passers-by. It is to perform a brain transplant on the city itself, to turn a revolving door into a front door. They are pivoting furiously into tech, AI, and sustainability, knowing that in a post-oil world, the only resource that matters is human capital. If the smartest people leave, the sand wins. The Dubai model, miracle or mirage with a dark foundation. So how did Dubai get rich? It wasn't just oil. Oil was a brief interlude, a starter fuel for a much more complex engine. Dubai got rich by operating not like a nation, but like a ruthless visionary startup. Pivot or die. It moved from pearls to gold, to logistics, to tourism, to finance, to being a safe haven. Leverage and scale. It used insane debt to build monumental infrastructure, the Creek, Jebel Ali, before the demand existed, betting the house on its own vision, marketing over everything. It understood perception as reality, building the Burj Al Arab not for profit but as a global branding exercise. Sell the geography. It turned its map coordinates, the crossroads of East and West, into its most valuable product. Embrace crisis. It learned to profit from the world's instability, positioning itself as the calm port in every storm. But this story has a dark foundation we cannot ignore. The glittering towers were built by a massive, often invisible workforce of migrant laborers. Reports from Human Rights Watch and others have documented the kafala sponsorship system, which has led to debt bondage, confiscated passports, and workers living in grim conditions, building a paradise they could never afford. The speed of the miracle had a human cost. The sheen of the 7-star service rests on a bedrock of grueling, underpaid labor. This is the unresolved, haunting contradiction at the heart of the Dubai model. Sheikh Rashid's father rode a camel. He rode a Mercedes. His son rides a Range Rover. The entire, desperate, glorious, and dark project of Dubai has been a frantic, multi-generational gamble to ensure that his great-grandson never, ever has to go back to the camel. The final question hangs in the desert heat. The world is moving beyond fossil fuels. The climate is growing harsher. The geopolitical winds shift. Has Dubai built a perpetual motion machine of reinvention? Or is it the most magnificent sandcastle of all, destined for the tide of history to finally, inexorably, wash it away? The gamble continues. The dark story is still being written.